Good evening, everybody. I am calling back to order the meeting of the Township Committee of the Township of Morris for Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. We had our closed session at 5 p.m. and we are reconvening now at 7 p.m. for the regular meeting. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Gyorfy? Here. Mr. Ravitz?
Here.
Mr. Mancuso?
Here.
Mrs. Wilson?
Here.
Mayor Grayzel?
Here. Both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied and a statement certifying same will be executed. Will everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda tonight is the approval of minutes from September 14th, regular and closed. Will somebody move those?
Move to circulate it, sir.
Second.
All in favor?
Mr. Gyorfy?
Aye.
I'm sorry?
Take a roll call or no? I think roll call or voice vote? Voice vote. Go ahead, Danielle.
Okay. Mr. Gyorfy?
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel?
Yes. I'm going to just do a little switch on the agenda. I would like to read the proclamation into the record first because I want to make sure that all the people here for the recognition ceremony do hear the proclamation as well. Every month, I try to have something to proclaim just to raise awareness of a certain issue, or last month we had a Hispanic Heritage Month, raise awareness of various things. And this month we are declaring October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'd like to read that proclamation into the record. Whereas domestic violence is not confined to any group or groups of people, but crosses all economic, racial, gender, educational, religious, and societal barriers. And whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to the systemic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, economic control and/or abuse, and destroys a victim's self-esteem. And whereas the Department of Justice estimates that approximately 1.3 million women and 835,000 men are the victims of physical violence by a partner each year, and some 16 million children are exposed to domestic violence every year. And whereas women are 70 times more likely to be killed in the weeks after having an abusive relationship than at any other time in that relationship, and almost 5% of female homicide victims are killed each year by an intimate partner. And whereas in Morris County, there are approximately 2,000 domestic violence offenses each year, representing but a fraction of the domestic violence in the community, since most cases are not reported. And whereas each year, Morris County and its supporting agencies serve hundreds of adults and children throughout its comprehensive walk-in center for the survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, dating abuse, and human trafficking. And whereas each year New Jersey Battered Women's Services, known as JBWS, offers safety, support, and solutions for abuse and answers over 5,000 helpline calls, provides over 17,000 nights of emergency shelter and transitional housing for over 210 victims and their children, accompanies approximately 1,000 victims in court, counsels hundreds of men, women, and children, and provides education to over 19,000 students and community members. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Committee that we hereby proclaim our recognition and support of October 2, 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So thank you. I wanted to raise that awareness among the group of people who are here for the recognition. It is widespread and, as the proclamation said, underreported, and we all need to be aware of these things as we go through life and keep our eyes open for things like that. Okay, so now we're going to move to Girl Scout recognition. I have the wonderful, and Mark, why don't you put up a picture while we're doing that? So I have the wonderful experience of going to ribbon cutting for these book boxes that Girl Scout Troop 5163 did at 3 locations in Morris Township. We have the 4 members of that Girl Scout troop here tonight with us, and we're going to bring them online. So do you, Mark, also, do you see the people out there?
You should see us on screen now.
Yes, so do you see, I want you to bring online Ella last name Delatouche, last name Silverson, last name Bongo, and last name Alexander. And then we have Chad from the library. Nina Weaver, do you see him out there?
Yes, Chad is down.
So just give us a second while we bring these guests on this evening. Maybe they're all not there, but a couple of them are there.
You want to bring them over, you're saying?
Yes, bring them over, yeah. So we can say hello. And they can come on.
There's Chad. Who's the other one? Hello? They should be coming over.
Okay.
They should be coming over here.
So do we have Ella, Elva, Emily, and Noelle online? Are all of you there?
Hi. Hi.
Hello.
That's 3. And Chad, are you there too? Is Chad online?
I'm here, yep.
Very good, thanks. So I wanted to recognize the Girl Scout Troop 6163 for a fantastic project they did. It originated with the library. They are book boxes, as you can see in that picture. To the left is Alexis Voley. That's right, her married name. Sorry, Alexis Voley. Then myself. We have the 4 Girl Scouts, and then we have Marianne from the library, and then Chad. Chad, who's your assistant director?
Oh, Mary Lynn Bexa, thanks.
Mary Lynn. And then we have Bill Walsh in that picture there, surrounding a book box that's right by Ginty Field. So can one of the girls speak to this project? And maybe each of you want to speak to each of the different book boxes and let us know where they are.
Elva and I have something prepared, and then after Noelle has something. Hi, my name is Emily Bongo, and this is Elva. We're a part of Girl Scout Troop 6163, along with Noelle Alexander and Ella, who I don't know if she's on yet or if she's coming tonight. We've been in Girl Scouts now for over 8 years, and recently we worked as a team to earn our Girl Scout Silver Award. We sought out the needs of our public library and decided we could enhance our community by building little free library book boxes and place them by our local pools and sports fields. The Morris Township library collects books and often ends up with excess. We are filling the box with an overage of books.
We placed one book box by Ginty Ball Fields across from the firehouse on Dwyer, one at Cornine Field close to Streeter Pool, and one at Deirdre's house on Court Street. The boxes are there for people in town to further their education through reading, having access to books they may not have, and to further enhance a joy for reading and using their imagination. We would like to thank everyone that helped us to make this award achievable.
Thank you, Mayor Grayzel, for our recognition and time at this meeting. Chad and Mary Lynn at the Morristown and Morris Township Library for their support of this project. Bill, Alexis, and Tim from Parks and Recreation Department for their help and with installing the boxes. Volunteers, Fred Corcoran and Ryan Bongo for their help with building the boxes. And we'd like to acknowledge our local vendors, Morristown Lumber, Morristown Brick and Stone, the Riccardi Brothers for their generous donations to make this all possible. We will continue to strive to do good in their community as well as we move forward in Girl Scouts, with the ultimate goal of earning our highest achievement, the Gold Award. Thank you again, everyone who helped, and enjoy a book from the book boxes.
We have one more speaker.
Yes, Noelle has something to say.
Right, so I wanted to ask Mark to go to the next picture. We have a few pictures. I just want to scroll through. I'll let you speak in a second, Noelle. So that is a picture of me presenting a recognition award to the 4 young women in the Girl Scout troop. And there's a book box. Okay, Noelle, now that we're looking at the book box, we'll let you speak. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Noelle Alexander. Being able to achieve our Silver Award project means a lot to us. Working together to make a difference in our community has taught me a lot about leadership, working as a team, and problem solving. Having books available for everyone is so important and gives everyone a chance to experience the excitement of reading a good book. I want to thank Mayor Grayzel and the Township Council members so much for recognizing and supporting Girl Scouts, and our troop leader, Mrs. Bongo, for supporting us. It is exciting to see the project completed and already being used by the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And do any of you have the certificates that I gave you? Do you have one there? I have, so I can show you. So you can see in that picture there, we handed out certifications to each of the Girl Scout troop members. And here's a copy of it that I'm holding up to my screen to recognize what they did and a little bit of background of them. So I was very pleased to be able to do that. As I stated that day at the ribbon cutting, that Morris Township is a great place for a lot of reasons. And there are a lot of elements that go into the great community that we have. One is the people, one element of that are the people that give back, that donate their time. And we have lots of different types of people that donate their time. This is a great example of a service project to give back to the community, which is just something that I love seeing. They put up book boxes not only at Gyorfy Field, but also at Deidre's house and at Streeter Pool. Mark can flip through to slides 4 and 5. And I encourage these Girl Scouts, all 4 of you, Ella, Elva, Emily, and Noelle, to continue on with this engagement with your community. Don't make this a single community service project. Keep some community service in your lives as you move forward. Wherever you land as adults, make sure that you engage with your community. Make sure you're a part of your community. Make sure you give back to your community and make it a better place for other people. And make sure that your kids do the same as well. And I also want to acknowledge all the people that went into bringing you to this point. So you have your troop leader, Wendy Bongo, but you also have a lot of people that contributed to you throughout your lives to get to this point. All the moms that drove you back and forth, all the community events, and all the other troop leaders that you had growing up, all of them contributed to this moment for you to be able to give back to the community. So I want to thank all of them as well. And I would like to turn over for a minute to Chad at the library for him to say a couple words about the project.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have to say one of the things is that this is an easy project when you have like fantastic young women that are working on something like this. We've worked on a lot of projects in the past with different people. And as I told the young women at the day, I said, when you guys years from now are running the United Nations, just remember us, all of us here at Morris Township, but also at the library, that and the things that you gave to us, because I think it's a gift that keeps giving. And I was just happy to be a part of it. Thank you so much to all of you. And thanks for all the support from everyone.
Thanks. And just at the chat, for just so you can remark about this, the book boxes, as they get emptied, you told us, tell us how they're going to get refilled.
Sure. So we restarted our bookmobile program, post-pandemic, probably last year, as different schools and daycare centers and things have opened up. And we've kept a constant dialogue with all of them, both in Morris Township and in Morristown. And so our bookmobile driver already knows this. We have a big crate that sits on her desk. And what she regularly does is we'll go through along with Mary Lynn and sort of find different books that we think people might want, that are things that we get donated or things our friends have given to us from our donations. And she will regularly go through and help fill these books in. I know the Girl Scouts have said they're going to keep an eye on things too, but it never hurts to have multiple eyes on things. And so we'll do that regularly, because she's driving around both municipalities on a regular basis. And so she can easily check on things, refill them. I think if I'm wrong, girls, I think one of the boxes was almost empty already. So Layla already did some refilling this week. So I think that's great that they're already getting use, and they're brand new, and that's fantastic.
And what are the rules around book boxes? So you can take a book. Are you supposed to bring it back? Can you keep it? Can you add books of your own to the book box? What are the general rules?
You just said them all the rules right there. So some people, if they feel like they take a book and they love it or they want to keep it or pass it along to somebody else, great. If they have a book that they've read that they liked or maybe didn't like as much, but are willing to give to somebody else and want to put it in the box, great. I mean, I think it's kind of an open chance for a lot of people to share things that they love or books that they have that they've used and are ready to pass on to somebody else. A lot of people will donate books to us, which is fantastic. And that's what our friends group has book sales for. But sometimes it's nice to have a project like this, particularly in neighborhoods. Maybe it's convenient when you're walking a pet at Ginty Field or wherever you might be. And I think that was sort of the impetus for doing this. And littlefreelibrary.org is the place where we'll actually register these book boxes through. And that's something that a lot of people will search online and then locate. And there are people that will regularly borrow books or take books out or drop books off at little boxes similar to these all over the country. And it's a great sort of setup for a lot of organizations.
Great, thank you so much. And in these days when so many people just stare at their phones and stare at screens all day, maybe this will encourage them when they drive by a book box to actually pick up a book and read it, because it really is a wonderful thing to just sit back with a book and read and let your minds imagine things instead of just seeing them on a screen. So I encourage everybody to visit a book box, pick out a book, try to read a little bit more in their lives. And thank you, all of you, for making our community a better place with this project. Thank you so much. Okay.
Very much. Thank you.
And we do have somebody from JBWS on the line. Okay, so we're finished with the recognition. I totally forgot about JBWS when I read the Domestic Violence Award and proclamation into the record. So can you bring on Robin?
I'm gonna bring her over.
Yes, bring her over, please. Robin, can you hear us?
Here she is.
Almost there. You online now?
Yeah.
There, we heard you, Robin.
Okay, I'm coming.
Thank you
You're
for
fine.
raising your hand, and I apologize for my forgetfulness when I read that into the record. But so happy that you could join us this evening and represent JBWS and the tremendous work that your organization does for the community.
Well,
So I'll let you say a few words. Tell everybody about your organization, and then you can speak to the proclamation.
It's going to be short and sweet. I am Robin Hughes, and I am the Crisis Response Team Manager, as was stated before. I manage all the volunteers and people who respond to police stations to help victims of domestic violence. And I also work with the police departments and the chiefs and the officers to make sure that victims get the best possible service when they're going through such an awful, awful experience. On behalf of JBWS, I'm honored to accept this proclamation with sincere thanks and appreciation. I am so very grateful for the words, the proclamation acknowledging domestic violence and the countless people affected by it. It is through awareness and education that real change can actually happen. It brings along with it hope for those living with abuse, that a life without fear is absolutely possible. And it's through this type of proclamation that is truly makes a change in the world. And I can't thank you enough, Mayor and Council. A heartfelt thanks to everyone.
Thank you. Well said. And raising awareness is what this is all about. A lot of people don't understand how pervasive it is. And we're trying to raise that awareness in the community. So we will, Robin, we can have a framed version of this proclamation to present to JBWS. If you would like to come by Town Hall and pick that up, or have somebody come by and pick it up.
It would be my honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on, and thank you again for raising your hand. Very good. Thank you.
Jeff, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I need to speak into the microphone. Very good. So we're going to move on in our agenda. Next on the agenda is our best practices. Correct?
That is correct, sir.
And I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mayor. Each year, and probably for the last 5 or 6 years, State of New Jersey has required each municipality to complete a best practices questionnaire. Now it's called an inventory. It's also, you have to do this in order to qualify to receive your state aid. Morris Township has always done very well on it. And again, we did the same for 2021. Some of the questions are consistent from years past. That's some new questions this year. And then also the last several years, they've been doing a survey to gauge interest as to different types of things that are going on in municipalities. So 27 questions, 23 were 1 point, 4 were half a point, for a total of 25 points. Pleased to say the township scored a 23 out of that 25 points. Topics included questions dealing with the Fair Labor Standard Act, personnel policies, budget, finance, purchasing and audit, social media and website transparency, cybersecurity and IT, shared services, and EV charging stations. On the unscored surveys, that are looking for information that dealt with shared services for professionals, stormwater management, the American Recovery Program allocations, accounts payable, purchasing and procurement, tax collection, planning and economic development, and recreation. So we have completed this. As part of the criteria is to present at a committee meeting, and certainly any questions from the governing body in reference to it, we can have that discussion. We will be submitting it down to DCA once this meeting is complete. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, that's my report.
Could I say something, Mr. Quinn? Peter here.
Yes, go ahead.
Back in the day, we sometimes did not fulfill every single box or check every box we should have on the best practices. And I think since Mr. Quinn and Ms. Fran DeAngelis have been working on this, we basically had 100% every year. And it's a very, very proud thing for me to say about both of them, how much hard work they put into this. But the other interesting thing is our 2020 audit came through and we got a perfect grade. Again, thanks to both of these people. So I just wanted to make a mention of that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Mayor, I have
Peter.
one question and one comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My comment, I love this kind of document. I find it very interesting that these are the kinds of practices the state is encouraging in order to qualify for state aid. I'm interpreting that correctly, correct, Mr. Quinn?
Yes, so you have to have a satisfactory score in order to get your quote unquote state aid.
Yeah, so I find the practices very interesting. You learn a lot by reading them. One comment I have on item 6, it asks whether you post all of your ordinances online. Yes, we do. One little suggestion I have going forward is, if possible, I would like to see us post our ordinances on our website by year. I believe now we post them by meeting, but I have found it useful. In Hanover, there's been situations that have come up where I'm interested in accessing their ordinances, and I've learned this from theirs. They post their ordinances by year, and it's really helpful in locating them. So I just have that as, a suggestion for us going forward to at least consider. And then another practice I found interesting was, it's a question, does your municipality impose these requirements on developers as a condition of granting zoning approval for residential construction or mixed use construction? And it has to do with infrastructure improvement costs. I never thought of such a thing. I think that's an interesting concept, and I just want to highlight it for the benefit of the members of our governing body is something to think about going forward. We don't do that, but it never occurred to me to do that. And I think it's an interesting concept for us to think about going forward.
But that is a survey question also, so we'll see what the results are. Sort of just like these guys.
That's where they're just asking for information, right? That's not part of the
Yeah,
score.
correct. Does not impact our overall score. That's just a survey question that they're asking all municipalities.
Right, so that'll be interesting to see what the response is from all of the municipalities.
Yes,
So,
well,
thank you. I appreciate all the work that goes into this, and I appreciate the, what our good score on it reveals about how well our town is run.
Yeah, very impressive. We live in a very well-run town. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. And thank you, everybody who worked to put this best practices report together. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, very good. So we'll move on to our first section of public commentary and inquiry. At our meeting, we have 2 sections for public comments and inquiry. One in the beginning that we're holding now, one at the end after we go through all of our ordinances and resolutions in case people have any additional questions. So I'm going to open it up to the public, and if you're interested in asking a question or making a comment about Morris Township or any of our practices, please raise your hand.
We have one person, Zach Tabor.
Zach Tabor.
Mr. Tabor?
Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Zach Tabor. Thank you for taking the time to allow me to speak. So I'd like to comment on the proposed ordinance change with regard to parking on Locust Street. My wife and I and Noel live on Locust Street. We're on the side of the street where it's proposed that there will no longer be parking. We understand why this proposal is, why it's being proposed, because as we understand it, there's an issue with emergency vehicles getting out of the fire station on Western Ave. And there's also concern about school buses, particularly turning from Center Street onto Locust Street. I myself am also a bus driver for Del Barton, so I understand that concern. But we think that there's rather than eliminating all parking on what I believe is the north side of the street, the odd numbered houses, rather than eliminating parking on that side of the street entirely, we think the major problem is near the intersection at Western and Locust, particularly for emergency vehicles. It would be obviously on the right-hand side of the street. So we think that a better thing would be to push the no parking, or to, I suppose, put a no parking sign further up from the intersection rather than eliminating it entirely on that side of the street, because there isn't going to be enough parking, we don't think, with all of the cars that park on the street, especially all of the citizens from Locust Street who park their cars on Locust because they don't have wraparound driveways. We don't have a wraparound driveway. We only have enough room to park one of our 2 vehicles. So we use street parking every day. We're really concerned that if you eliminate that entire side of the street for parking, that all of those cars that from people who live on Locust will then go up the entire side of the street. There isn't really any available parking, street parking on Center, because it's always filled up. And we also don't think it would really change the dynamic of how emergency vehicle, I think even personally as a bus driver, if there's a school bus coming and then there's oncoming traffic, someone is going to have to get out of the way, even if it's only one side parking, just because of, the width of the street and, how it is. We also, the other concern we have is that if you remove one side parking, the speeding will get worse because this is kind of a thoroughfare, and getting from Western into the Burnham Park area and then on to the other side of Morris Township. Some people who use that as, they really kind of, especially coming down the hill, but also people speeding up the hill. We think that is another major concern that would get worse. We spoke with the police chief, was very kind with his time. We talked to him about that. So, we'll make sure that we notify the police department anytime we see it. And then the final concern that we have too is that there isn't a sidewalk on the side of the street now where parking will be if this proposed change goes into place, and there's no way to build a sidewalk because it's onto a hill bank. So, we're hoping to have kids, in the next few years, and it would really be concerning with the way that people come down the street, especially if we're parking facing down the hill and then there are cars coming fast, from behind us, and we have to get kids out of the car and they have to stand on a hillside or any of that kind of stuff. That would not be I would not really be comfortable having to do that every single day, which is what we would have to do. So those are our concerns. We do think that there can be like an amendment to it where it's just about moving the no parking further away from the intersection, because we think the intersection with Western is where the biggest issue is, and allowing emergency vehicles or buses to get onto Locust so that vehicles can pass. Because, I think some of the folks on this call live in that neighborhood, and most of the streets are kind of like that, where cars have to wait for cars to pass through each other. And I know there's a school bus route that comes down Center and then turns left onto Locust every day. And Center is functionally a 1-lane road because of the parking situation there. So I know that's a lot of different comments and thoughts, and we know that this is only the first reading, but those were the concerns that we had. And we'd like to, be a part of the conversation. And if there's any room for modification or anything like that, we'd love to see that happen. So thank you for your time and your listening.
Thank you, Mr. Tabor. And did we get his address? We got his address on the record in the beginning?
We did not.
Can you just repeat your address?
Yep, that's 9 Locust Street.
9 Locust Street. Very good.
Yep.
I appreciate the conversation that you and I had when I walked the neighborhood. Just to address one of your comments, so that everybody in the public knows, we have 2 readings for every ordinance. So we have an introductory reading, which happens tonight. Then at the second reading, we have a formal public hearing where comments like Mr. Tabor's go into the record for that ordinance. So these will go into the record as general public commentary. But if you were to come back at the second read and give us additional comments, that would go into the record for the ordinance in particular. Let's see if there are any other people out there who have comments. Anybody else raising their hand?
No other hands, no.
Okay, so we'll reserve our commentary, and I have some commentary on the ordinance when we introduce it. But let's just see if anybody else out there in the public has anything else they want to discuss.
No one.
Seeing none, will somebody move to close the public portion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. So now we're going to move to ordinances for introduction. The ordinance that Mr. Tabor was just referring to, 2621. I will turn it over to our attorney, Scott Carlson, to read it into the record.
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance 26-21, an ordinance amending Chapter 88, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Parking, Stopping, and Standing, Section 2.2, Parking Prohibited at all times on certain streets, Schedule 1, to add Locust Street, and amending Section 2.7, Parking Prohibited on snow-covered roads, Schedule 6, to remove Locust Street. This is an ordinance improving access for buses and emergency vehicles.
Okay, before we actually move it and put it into the record, I think we can have a discussion before we actually move it. Because I had some questions about the ordinance, and walking the area, again, when I approach a problem, it's, you have problems and then you have related issues. And there are a lot of related issues that I found in this area. As I walked the neighborhood, I found that several people on Western Avenue had no driveway and relied solely on street parking. I learned that there's a 15-minute parking zone along Western Avenue for people to access Stephanie's Deli, which is great. But then Stephanie's Deli closes, and the 15-minute parking, I think, stays in effect 24 hours a day. There's no sign there to indicate that people can park there, so there's confusion about that. Along Center Avenue, around the corner from Locust Street, there are a lot of two-family homes that I came across with only one driveway. And people, some of those homes didn't have access to driveway parking and also needed the street. So I'm wondering if we need a broader survey of the issue before we move forward with this and a better understanding of the related issues. But I want to hear from Mr. Gyorfy and Ms. Wilson, because they also walked in here. So why don't you tell us what your feelings are and what you heard from the neighbors?
Yeah, first I'll start off saying thank you to the Tabers for taking the time to speak with me earlier this weekend.
Hold on one second. Can you hear Mr. Gyorfy, or does he need to speak into
A
the
little
microphone?
remote.
All of us need to speak directly into the mic tonight.
How's that?
That's better.
Okay, just thanking the Tabers for taking the time to speak with us. I spoke with Noel this weekend. I think Kathy has spoken with her as well, Jeff did. My concern with Locust is one, for emergency vehicles and buses going in and out, especially at the intersection by Western. I also have a concern which impacts the entire street length of Locust, is that if there is an emergency and should the fire department need a ladder truck, if that ladder truck needs to put its stabilizers out, I don't think it'd be able to get across if there are cars parked on both sides of the street, if the ladder had to be used on a house. That is a concern. Obviously, we hope that never has to happen, and it's rare, but it is a concern that I have. I totally understand the concerns from the Tabers, and I think we should continue to speak about it and keep those communications open. But that's just from my perspective, and I personally, having driven the fire truck as a first responder, as a volunteer, I've had issues navigating Locust Street, and feel that we need to address the traffic and the buildup, especially near Western Avenue, in some way, shape, or form, which is why I would support introducing this ordinance. But I am definitely dedicated and will continue to have conversations to see if there's other things we have to address that need to be factored in as well.
Okay. And just for clarification, is it proposed that we have no parking on the side that has the sidewalk, or no parking on the side that doesn't have the sidewalk?
No parking on the side that has the sidewalk.
Okay, because Mr. Tabor actually made a good point. I mean, when you get out of your car, you really should want to access a sidewalk safely, as opposed to having to park your car and then walk.
The problem-
Bigger concern.
What's that?
The big concern is the radius for the buses and school buses.
Yeah.
You have 50 feet for the stop sign,
Right.
so you have a wider thing, we only have 10 feet.
Mr. Quinn, it's a little hard to understand what you're saying.
We've looked at that, Mayor, we looked at that with the police department, and the biggest concern is the turning radiuses for the fire trucks to be able to clear there and be stay in their lane after they make the turn from Western Avenue to go up the hill.
Oh, I see.
Yes, okay, when you make a left from Western up.
From Western up the
That
hill.
was one of the things that the police department did look at when they were making their recommendation.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I understand that now. Okay, Kathy, what?
Yeah, sure.
Your comments.
I talked with Zach's wife, Noelle, and we had a lengthy conversation. I feel like I have a good understanding of their concerns, which is very important to me. I was not aware of some of the things that you mentioned, Jeff, as far as the number of people who don't have driveways to park in. And so I do have questions about, you know, how this will impact parking. It's literally a question. I don't know how many people park on Locust because they don't have driveways to park in. At the same time, I think it's very important to address the safety issues. Mr. Gyorfy is very well versed in those from driving the fire trucks and also the bus concerns. So there are very important safety concerns here, but I do have some additional questions about like you were saying, Mayor, about related problems. How is this going to affect parking of everybody, other people besides people who live on Locust? And I don't have an answer to that question, and I'm not sure if, I kind of assume that was addressed in the police report where the recommendation was made, but I haven't read that original source document myself.
It was addressed. I think that the one side will be able to handle the parking for the vehicles that are parked on the street. I do drive that every morning, and I concur with their report.
Mr. Mancuso, do you have any comments, or Mr. Ravitz?
No, just agreeing.
Well, my comment is, sort of in line with Committeewoman Wilson. I understand, the fire department and school buses needing to navigate the road, but I am definitely sympathetic to the residents' concerns about parking. And I'm not sure if simply eliminating parking on one side of the street is the answer or not. I'm not well versed in, I know the street, I haven't spoken with residents, but I do appreciate both sides of the story here. And I'm wondering if our solution in the resolution really, it does solve one problem, but it gives us other problems for residents. And that concerns me. So like Ms. Wilson, I'm not sure really which way to go, but I'm hoping that if this resolution goes forward, that we don't create another headache for ourselves down the road.
So I have a
One
question.
question I have
Yep.
is, is there a report that the police wrote that describing their findings and their recommendations?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, so we'll have that circulated, because I'd like to read that too. We'll circulate that between now and the second reading of the ordinance. I did have another question for Mr. Quinn. So I noticed on Western Avenue, there seem to be about 6 spots dedicated to 15-minute parking. Does our ordinance say that people can park there after a certain hour, or is that 24 hours a day?
I would have to research it.
So the way I'm looking at the problem of parking on Locust is, from what I understand, and it's hard to tell because you don't know whose car is whose, but there are people from Western who don't have a driveway who, I spoke to one woman who says she drives around every day looking for where she could park her car. And a lot of those cars end up on Locust. But if we were to able to open up the 15-minute parking spots overnight for residents to park, and then they would be moved when Stephanie's Deli opened up in the morning, so that people could park and use the deli, that might be a solution to the problem, to alleviate the on-street parking need. So I'd like us to take a look into that too, between now and the second reading of the ordinance. So does anybody have any more comments before we do the actual introduction? I think I'm okay introducing it, but I think there's a lot more that needs to be done between now and the second reading to answer questions that we have and assure the public that this is the right thing to do.
Mayor Grayzel, I think your approach is a fine approach. I think that using the parking spots that are 15-minute only after Stephanie's has closed might just solve the problem. So I think it's worthy to look into.
And there are other related problems that I heard from residents about snow clearing on the streets, and if there's a way to use the weights and measures parking lot during a snowstorm so that the streets can be cleared properly. It's just suggestions that some people had that I thought were good, and that's the kind of thing that you get when you actually engage residents. It's something that our township committee does all the time, walk in the neighborhood to understand the problem. So I got a lot of good suggestions going forward. So just to assure Mr. Tabor, who is on the phone, we're going to introduce this tonight. We are going to do a lot of research between now and the second reading. It's not to say that what we are introducing tonight might be changed. I'm not going to say it is going to be changed, or I'm not going to predict the future. But we'll go ahead with the introduction because that's the recommendation of our standing committees and our police department. But I assure everybody that we will do research between now and then and get some answers on these other related things to hopefully look at the wider issue of street parking in that area.
And
Sound
if
good,
we
everybody?
are, and if we're still examining this, Mr. Mayor, at that time, it doesn't mean that we have to pass the ordinance in its final reading next month. We can put it off too, if we're still studying the issue.
Yeah, we have flexibility. But let's at least get it on the record and we can move forward from there and figure out what the best thing to do is. Okay, so with that said, will somebody move ordinance 2621?
So moved.
I will do so, sir.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear who seconded the motion.
Mr. Gyorfy seconded the vote. Mr. Mancuso moved it, second from Mr. Gyorfy.
Thank you. Mr. Gyorfy? I can't hear.
Yeah, we couldn't hear you.
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel?
Yes. And just to remind the public, I was going to do this at the end of the meeting. Usually our meetings are the third Wednesday of the month in November because of a state meeting that's happening the third Wednesday of the month. We are having our November meeting the second Wednesday of the month, which is November 10th. So the second reading of this ordinance will occur on that date. And again, I promise the public that we will do a lot of research between now and then. Anybody in the public can always email any of us on the Township Committee with their thoughts, suggestions, and we are very responsive to our residents. It's first initial, last name at morristwp.com. I encourage everybody to write us in the interim, and thank everybody for their comments. Okay, next we have a bid report from our administrator, Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one bid to report that is for the reconstruction project for Sherman Avenue. We put out the bids, 13 bids were picked up. We had the bid opening on October 13th. Prior to that, 6 bids were received and opened up at that meeting. The lowest responsible bidder was S&L Contractors of Kenilworth, New Jersey, with a bid of $871,750.80. The bids range between that low amount and an amount of $1,270,028. Also with this, there is an add-on of additionally $32,000 that we've accepted, and that is for the raised intersections on Sherman Avenue as part of the project. So it is the recommendation from our Department of Engineering, after reviewing all of the bids, that the Township Committee award a bid in the amount of $903,750.80 to S&L Contractors, and you have an accompanying resolution for that award.
Very good, thank you. Thank you, sir. And just so the public understands, that amount of money is also offset by a state grant, correct?
Yes, sir, it is approximately $300,000.
$300,000. So the state of New Jersey, NJDOT, Department of Transportation, gives grants for these kinds of projects. So they're kicking in $300,000. The rest is on Morris Township. But it is yet another infrastructure improvement that we are making in our community to upgrade the roadways. We're going to add sidewalk. We're going to improve the drainage. And as Mr. Quinn said at the end, we're also going to try a new traffic calming device, which is a raised intersection. Will that be the first one in our town?
Yes, sir. Will.
Okay, so we're going to try that out and see how that works. We're going to talk about traffic calming just in a little bit with a resolution that we have. But again, another example of infrastructure investment in Morris Township. Very good. So next we have resolutions 200-21 through 216-21. Coming out of closed session, there are no additional resolutions to be read into the record tonight. We're going to pull 2 aside, but I will let turn it over to Mr. Carlson.
Yes, Mayor, we're looking for a motion to.
Mr. Carlson, read into. I can't hear you too well.
Thank you, Mayor. We're looking for a motion to move resolutions 200-21 through 211-21, 213-21, and 214-21, and 216-21. Just a couple notes, we will deal with 212-21 and 215-21 separately, and 205-21 is going to be revised. Apparently, my name was included in one paragraph of that resolution in error. Believe me, you do not want me doing your engineering work, so that will be corrected administratively.
And will be replaced with the name of Thomas Nance, just to be clear.
Daniel Kelly.
Oh, wrong one. Daniel Kelly. There you go. Daniel Kelly. Very good. So we're pulling aside two resolutions to discuss separately, but will somebody move that block of 15 resolutions, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? We need a roll call. We need a roll call. Danielle?
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. I ask that we pull aside 212 and 215 for discussion. Mr. Carl, should read 212 into the record, please?
212-21, this is a resolution consenting to the application of David Sitchek for water service outside the district of Southeast Morris County Municipal Utilities Authority.
Very good. So for education of the public, we have a water district that includes Morristown, Morris Township, Morris Plains, and Hanover. Did I miss a town, Tim?
No, 4 towns.
4 towns. Very good. And we have a water district. We manage our own water supply. We have wells all over the place. We have Clyde Potts Reservoir that we utilize, and we have a water system that's managed by the Southeast Morris County Utilities Authority. And once in a while, or more than once in a while, we get the requests for water service outside the district. And tonight we have a request for just a single home in Harding. But I thought it warranted a little bit of discussion for the following reasons. I love the water at my house. We have a lot of groundwater. That's the source water for our water system here within the Smucka, what we call the Smucka district. And the quality of water at my home is delicious, right out of the tap. We have enough water to service the district, but when demands rise, and demands are rising all over the place within the district, we actually have to bring water in from other sources, so from outside water companies, to sustain the demand within our district. And the more, I just want everybody to realize, the more and more homes outside the district that we allow to consume water inside the district increases the amount of water that we need to bring from alternative sources. And those alternative source is predominantly surface water. And although water quality in New Jersey has certain standards, I think the water quality that we have within our district, because it's groundwater, is actually a little bit higher than surface water. And I think in general, you will get that opinion that groundwater has a little bit higher quality than surface water because it's been filtered naturally through the ground. But I would like to hear more from Smucka, and I would like to have them come explain some of this stuff to the public as they do periodically. But I did want to bring that awareness to the Township Committee because we are going to have a request from Harding in the coming months for 96 townhomes that are being built in Harding, and they are going to want to access our water system as well. We have growing development within the district. For example, at 340 Mount Kimball, we have CIT Group moving in. They're redeveloping the other half of the building. Again, there are going to be demands on the water there. We're building throughout our town. We have Honeywell. We have Colgate that's being built right now. We have other things that will be built in the future. And there are just in general increasing demands on our water supply. And my concern, as I stated earlier, is having to rely on other water sources, not being able to be self-sustaining. And we've seen around the country where certain areas around the country that don't have enough water themselves. And I would just like to see us be in a position where we can sustain ourselves without having to rely on others for water. So I wanted to raise awareness amongst this body about the strains I think that are on the system, the growing demands that are happening all around us, and the fact that we are increasingly relying on water from outside the district. And again, this has nothing to do with this particular one request for a single service in Harding. But I, again, wanted to raise the awareness of future demands coming from Harding, possibly elsewhere outside the district, and the demands that the water supply has. So I'm going to ask that within the next few months, we bring SMUCA, the water company, in for a little presentation to talk to us about this, so that when the request from Harding comes in, we'll have a full view of what our system is looking like these days. But that's the discussion I wanted to have. So sorry for rambling for a little while. I wanted to educate the public and the committee about this. Does anybody else have any comments? Seeing none? Very good. So seeing none, I'll ask that somebody move resolution 212-21.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gyorfy. This one does not need a roll call. We'll take a roll call. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Carlson, 215-21.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution regarding the adoption of a traffic calming policy and procedures regarding the deployment of traffic calming measures for streets within the jurisdiction of Morris Township.
Very good. And I'm going to turn it over directly to Mr. Gyorfy, who led this effort.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to report that this month the Transportation Advisory Committee approved the Township Committee will be voting on now Morris Township's traffic calming policy. This policy, which was included in tax recommendations to the Township Committee earlier this year, establishes a standardized process for residents to request a review of their street or neighborhood for potential implementation of traffic calming measures and/or devices. Establishing this standard, which may be adjusted or modified in the future, provides in significant detail the step-by-step process the Township will take to review neighbors seeing speeding and excessive traffic volumes on their streets. I'd like to thank DJ Chernow, who is a volunteer on our Transportation Advisory Committee, as well as Dan Nunn. They're both on our driving subcommittee. I'd also like to expressly thank our Township Administrator, Tim Quinn, our engineers, Jim Slate and Bernie Singer, who's on his team, as well as the TAC members who have provided input on this project over the past 6 months. I think it's a big step forward for Morris Township. It's important that we standardize this process as we take more and more traffic calming measures into account for reconstruction projects or ad hoc projects. And I encourage the rest of the committee to support this resolution, and I look forward to its implementation in the future.
Very good. And if I can add a little bit of color to that, Morris Township is a donut that surrounds Morristown. And in the middle of Morristown, or a little bit off center, is the access to 287 to highways. And we also have access to 24 in our town. Morris Township being a donut, there's a lot of cut through traffic. People are trying to find the easiest way to get through Morristown to wherever they need to go. And for that reason, that cut through traffic, we've heard for years and years, community complaints about people cutting through the neighborhoods, speeding, not paying attention as they should maybe as they drive through neighborhoods. And so I really appreciate the work that went in to create this traffic calming policy. As Mr. Gyorfy said, it'll be the basis for us implementing hopefully traffic calming in other parts of Morris Township. But I thank you for all the work of the TAC members. Thank you for the police department, everybody who contributed to putting this together. The engineering department put a significant amount of time in there. Mr. Quinn, thank you for your input. This is a great step forward for our community in making our neighborhood safer. And we saw an example of it when I just mentioned before with the bid report tonight. We're actually putting in our first raised intersection, and raised intersections are mentioned in this traffic calming policy. So I encourage the public to look at it. We're going to publish, it'll be online. online tomorrow, or maybe it's even online right now for your viewing. Okay, anybody else have any comments on 21521?
I'll just say it's a really great accomplishment, and I'll have some further comments during my township committee comments.
Very good. With that, will somebody move to 1521? Mr. Gyorfy, go ahead. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is general business correspondence as circulated. Will somebody move that, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Standing committee reports. So we have, for people who are new to this, we have standing committees that have oversight over the various operations of Morris Township. We ask them to, those committee members to report on anything of significance that happen in their standing committees during the month. And tonight I'll start off with Mr. Mancuso.
Thank you very much, sir. One of the main things I saw was several years ago, we were parties to putting together the joint court with Madison Chatham, the two Chathams, and ourselves, including Harding at the time. We saved a substantial amount of money by merging these services, and I'm just glad that we have 4 years of that under our belt, that not to have to worry. I was sort of heartened, and I like to see this Grow It Green. Looks like it's going to be a very interesting thing over at Convent Station on Sundays, a farmer's market from late December, I guess, until March. Appreciate looking at, especially what Mr. Gyorfy was talking about, is the no parking in certain streets, especially during snow, and the traffic calming situation that we have all talked about. Ms. Wilson and I have been working. We've had our first meeting together with talking about the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. We're looking very forward to putting that together. We will be taking applications and choosing 7 people to participate with us in what's happening. I think it's a very, very, very good thing. We're going to have to wait about 10 years for Mrs. Wilson to be a senior citizen, but aside from that, I think we're covered. And that's all I have for now. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you. Well, with that lead in, I'll turn it over to Ms. Wilson, see what she has to say.
Okay. Well, I have 3 standing committee reports tonight: fire, personnel, and environment. On the fire standing committee, congratulations to Brian O'Neill on being our most newly added volunteer. I'm really happy that for the last several meetings, we've added new volunteers to our ranks, which is starting to feel like a trend, which is very welcome, and I hope it continues. And in the meantime, congratulations to Mr. O'Neill on completing your training, which is an accomplishment in itself. And thanks in advance for your service to our community. A quick comment about Fire Prevention Week. During the week of October 9th, fire departments across the country celebrate Fire Prevention Week. Our fire department was no exception. They held open house events for the public on 2 separate nights at Fairchild and Woodland. These events were well staffed by members of our department. Thank you to all for the extra time and effort that went into doing that. Thanks also to all the families who showed up. I really enjoy watching all the little kids who are awed by the big trucks and the ladders, and they very much enjoy the popcorn as well. The purpose of Fire Prevention Week is to call attention to and educate the public on good fire prevention practices, which are really important, so important to all of us. One quick mention of a little known historic fact: Fire Prevention Week has been celebrated as a national observance during the week of October 9th every year since 1925. The timing is significant because it commemorates the Great Chicago Fire of October 9th, 1871, which killed more than 250 people, left more than 100,000 people homeless, destroyed more than 17,400 structures, and burned more than 2,000 acres of land. Can you imagine how different that outcome would have been if people at that time had smoke detectors like we all have today? What a great reminder of how incredibly value these basic safety measures like smoke detectors really are. And speaking of which, my favorite tip I heard during Fire Prevention Week was hear a beep, get on your feet, hear a chirp, make a change. So if you hear those chirps, it's time to change your batteries. And I want to thank our fire department for all you do to keep our community safe during that week and of course every week. For personnel, the Personnel Standing Committee will be very busy in the next few weeks interviewing candidates for professional positions. As I explained last month, every year the Township Committee appoints people to fill a variety of professional positions. For example, we appoint several attorneys like municipal attorney and redevelopment attorney. We also appoint other professionals such as auditors, risk managers, et cetera, et cetera. This appointment process, which is traditionally led by members of the majority party of the Township Committee with no formal application or interview requirements, has been going on for decades, if not centuries. This year, we are changing the way that process is implemented. For any new appointments that were made by this governing body since 2019, and any new appointments that need to be made going forward, the Personnel Standing Committee will interview a minimum of 3 candidates. The Personnel Standing Committee, which consists this year of Peter Mancuso and myself, will then forward to the Township Committee our recommendations for the candidates best qualified to fill those positions. We're currently in the process of creating written information, including job description, qualifications, application procedures, etc., that will be publicized and completed by the applicants who are interested in being considered for these jobs. A special thanks to Mr. Quinn for taking the lead in writing and sending out all the written information and coordinating all the scheduling arrangements. This is a really different way of making professional appointments. It's the opposite of what's commonly known as making political appointments. It's hard for me to believe that any other town in New Jersey is using such a process to make their appointments. It's certainly never been done here in Morris Township before. Adding these application and interview requirements is clearly the right thing to do. I'm really proud of what this shows about our leadership and what it shows about our commitment to the integrity of the appointment process. So to be continued in the days ahead. Finally, on the Environment Standing Committee, first off, a big thank you to Tilly Jo Emerson for her many years of service to our Environmental Commission. Tilly Jo's commitment to doing whatever it takes to preserve our environment is unshakable. Maplewood will be very lucky to be getting her as a new resident. We will miss her dearly and wish her the very best in the future. A comment about the Festival on the Green. This is the first year that our Environmental Commission had a booth at the Fall Festival. The interest and excitement and activity were really amazing, a true testament to all the cool stuff that our Environmental Commission is doing. A couple examples. They created beautiful and informative brochures on topics like energy aggregation, composting, and invasive species. Particularly popular with the kids, and the parents alike was the hands-on activity showing how to plant acorns, which was a brainchild of EC member Jen Karsich. Our reusable bags were a huge success. I happen to have one right here. I couldn't believe how many people were willing to sign up for our EC newsletter just to get a bag. And I love seeing all the sea of, we have new green shirts. This is what it looks like, worn by our EC members as they staff the booth. I really love also how several EC members actually held a sort of dress rehearsal ahead of time to plan how they would squeeze everything they wanted to include within the booth size. That is a mark of real commitment to the cause. So huge kudos to the entire EC and especially to Chairman Kenny for a very successful job well done. I also want to make a comment about the farmers market with Grow It Green. They're going to do a winter farmers market at Convent Station. This is a really exciting development, and I'm very happy that we'll be working in partnership together with Grow It Green. Grow It Green is a local nonprofit organization that contributes so much to activities that support grow local, buy local, food initiatives and production. Doing a farmer's market during the winter is not common. This is really a win-win for everybody, for residents, for local farmers, and for local vendors, especially. Our partnership with Grow It Green will also be a great asset to our Environmental Commission and to the Township as we pursue for the first time next year, in the coming year, certification through the Sustainable Jersey program. Grow It Green is a model in excellence in practices related to sustainability. I have no doubt that they will be very helpful to us, not only in earning points toward our Sustainable Jersey certification, but most importantly, in making our community a better, healthier, and more sustainable place for all. So the market will be held on Sundays from December through March, and we'll be sharing more information as it becomes available. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I've got on standing committee reports.
Thank you. Mr. Ravitz.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to focus my committee reports on Parks and Recreation. Last night, we had our Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, and I got to say it was jam-packed with really great information. We watched an informative presentation by a resident of the township, Rachel Linden, on organic turf management best practices, which was followed quickly by a presentation by Tim Hamfeld, the Assistant Superintendent of Fields, on our current best practices. And I'm delighted to report that our township best practices are very well aligned with organic best practices. So that was just, really great news to hear that. So I'd like to give a shout out to the entire team that keeps our fields and playgrounds in such great condition all year long. It takes a tremendous amount of hours by the staff to keep everything working and in playing order, and they deserve a bit of recognition. So much hard work goes on behind the scenes to keep our facilities in such great condition, and we should all be grateful for their efforts. The fall brochure is up on the township website, and it's very comprehensive. So please visit the Parks and Rec website to get the latest on all available programs for people of all ages. The winter programs are not yet up due to uncertainty of using school facilities. A couple of events we've got coming up in October. Trunk or Treat is noon on Saturday, October 30th at Dwyer Lane by Ginty Field. Township Police, Fire, and OEM, as always, will be taking part. There will be a showing of The Nightmare Before Christmas, the Tim Burton film, that at Ginty Field, and that'll be at Saturday, October 23rd. Lastly, we have a ribbon cutting ceremony on Saturday, November 6th at 10 a.m. at Collinsville Playground. Your governing body and Parks and Rec Department are absolutely committed to revitalizing and keeping playgrounds up to date, safe, and enjoyable for residents. And one more thing real quick. We have many volunteer and scout park project opportunities that are available. So any person or group looking to get involved in enhancing the township parks and rec facilities can find a worthy cause in trail projects, environmental improvement projects, or general park improvement projects. So I urge people to come, help make a difference in our community, and visit the Parks and Rec page for more details on that. That's it for me on the committee reports right now. Back to you, Mayor.
Very good, thank you. Deputy Mayor Gyorfy.
Thank you, Mayor. As I stated earlier, for the Transportation Advisory Committee, we passed our traffic calming policy this month. We'll also, over the next few months, be working to update our website. This stems from a project we started in the summer where we're trying to consolidate as many resources for folks to find all in one place, whether it's regarding to walking paths or sidewalks or parking, bicycling, things like that. We're going to try to have a one-stop shop on our website for all things transportation. We're also starting to work on organizing our goals for 2022 and the priorities we're going to be working on next year. A project also that we're going to be doing, which I think will be interesting for the Township Committee, and that definitely we'll have to be cognizant of in the beginning of the year next year. TAG is going to work on revisiting our recommendations that stem from the mobility survey that we published in the spring. We'll have an update on what projects have been accomplished, which have been funded, which are underway, and which remain on our radar. So more to come on that, and we're already looking ahead to next year. Thanks.
Very good. And I myself have 4 committee reports. One, I am the liaison to the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and I've reported previously about a survey that we hired a consultant to do a survey of the Madison Avenue corridor. That survey is complete, and the consultant presented his findings to EDAC at our last meeting. And Tim, is that up on the website now?
No, we're still waiting on one addendum that we spoke about the meeting, and just concluded that interview. And we should be getting the transcript and the addendum to the report.
Okay, very good. Yeah, just as he was completing his work, one of the building occupants actually got back to him with some feedback, and he's creating an addendum for us with that additional feedback. So that'll be up on the website soon. The reason we're doing that is because I like to be proactive rather than reactive. We also, as a Township Committee, like to get input and survey people. In this case, both our commercial residents, but also our citizen residents, non-commercial, I don't know what the right word is, regular residents, just residents. So we'll be doing a phase 2 and getting some input from our residents in the future about Madison Avenue. We wanted to survey the commercial tenants first. So we'll let you know when that's up on the website. Second, joint municipal court. Mr. Mancuso mentioned that we are rejoining the municipal court, and we're happy to have passed that tonight at our meeting. Third, engineering. We talked about awarding the Sherman Avenue bid tonight. Next up for our engineering department, and boy, our engineering department keeps busy all the time. But our next road project, I believe, is going to be Normandy Parkway. Is that correct?
No, sir, it'll be Pine Tree.
Oh, Pine Tree. That's right. Pine Tree, Gregory, and Kennedy, and then Normandy will be after that. So again, always once we finish one infrastructure improvement project for our roadways, we move on to the next one, and we have several of them queued up for the next few months. And lastly, from the sewer, on the sewer oversight committee, we had started doing a roof replacement at the sewer plants, very extensive roof replacement that has been needed for a long time. And while that was underway, we decided to move forward the HVAC improvements that had been put aside already in our capital accounts, already paid for through the budgets. We decided to move that forward and do that in conjunction with the roof replacement because it just made more sense. And that was on our agenda tonight. We passed an HVAC. We passed a resolution to add the HVAC improvements to the roof replacement project that's already underway. Is that accurate, Mr. Quinn?
Yes, sir, that is.
Very good, thank you. And those are my 4 committee reports. So we're going to go around the horn again and talk about any general comments that anybody wants to add on. Mr. Mancuso, do you have anything extra you want to say?
I do, sir. I have 3 items I'd like to bring up. We've spoken about this many times before, and I think it's very, very important for ourselves and for our safety and for our police. But please, if you park your car in the street or you park a car in a driveway, please lock the doors and take the keys with you. We've had many, many, many situations occurring, and I think it's a very, very wise thing to do. Second of all, Kathleen Emilio was our clerk here for many years, almost all the time I've been around. And she did as extraordinary a job as almost anybody I've ever known. But I would like to give a shout out to Danielle, who has done a wonderful job, our new clerk. She has really understood what we need to have done. And Danielle Lewis is one of the finer people we have working for us. And I think we did a great job in hiring her. And my final thought is a week from Tuesday is election day. I do have some prejudices as to who you vote for, but I think the most important thing is that you vote. Voting is critical. So I thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mancuso. Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to congratulate the Girl Scouts. I love their project, and I, like you said, I totally appreciate their service to our community. So congratulations to those young women. On the Domestic Violence Awareness Month proclamation, I'm really glad that we passed this. It's a very important issue. It's absolutely debilitating to live in a situation that involves domestic violence and abuse, and it's more common than you may think. So, and I'm very glad that we live in a community that offers good support, like the services provided by JBWS, Jersey Battered Women's Services. A few comments about our traffic calming policy. I'm very glad we passed this tonight. Starting with a few thank yous. Thank you to our professionals who spent probably a countless number of hours writing the initial draft. Special thanks to Mr. Gyorfy for all the great work you've done in your role as chair and for keeping all of us focused on completing the job. And to DJ Chernow, who worked really hard to coordinate everybody's ideas and contributions. And also a big thanks to all the residents who are members of TAC and took their responsibility to represent the views of the residents very seriously. Getting to this point is just a great accomplishment. The policy itself is meaty, it's detailed, it's an awesome asset for our residents, and I encourage everybody to read it. There's another reason for me that I view it as a really great accomplishment. This is the first situation I've ever seen where residents had such a real seat at the decision-making table and a real voice in crafting a policy of this scope and importance. Getting to this point was a heavy lift. Our professionals, like we said, spent countless hours working on the draft. TAC members spent months reviewing the draft, asking questions, clarifying what everything meant, discussing alternatives, suggesting revisions. This review process was lively. I know some people got frustrated with this process. I get that. I felt that way myself at times. But ironically enough, big picture, heated conversations are exactly what happens when you're working on a project where people are really engaged and everybody feels passionate and committed to the cause. So ironically, I'm actually glad the review process was very lively. To me, that's an indication that it was working well. The product of tax efforts, the policy we approved tonight proves that point. It's really good. And I want to thank everybody on a job well done. A quick comment also about the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. I'm very much looking forward to working with Mr. Mancuso to get this committee up and running. Hopefully everybody saw the messenger email that was sent out a few days ago. Special thanks to Mr. Quinn and Virginia Murphy for doing that. For anybody who's interested in serving on this committee, the first step is to fill out a volunteer application. That is due by November 5th. You can get those on our website or a hard copy in person at Town Hall. After we get all the applications, we'll do the interviews. We're looking for people who are interested in seniors issues, have ideas to share, and are enthusiastic about serving on the committee. After the interviews, Mr. Mancuso and I will recommend the membership. There will be a formal vote by the Township Committee, probably on, I'm assuming at our December meeting. We had said that we would like to have our first meeting of the year for the Seniors Committee. And I looked at the calendar, and although we haven't set this officially, I'm putting it out there for consideration. It makes sense to me to do that first meeting on December 16th, because otherwise you start getting into a lot of conflicts with the holidays. We do hope in 2022 to have a minimum of 4 meetings. They're open to the public, and we invite anybody who's interested. We encourage you to apply. This has been on our to-do list for a long time, and I'm really excited that it's happening. My final comment is I want to echo Mr. Mancuso's encouragement to everyone to vote. This is such a precious right in our system of government, and so many people take it for granted. So I encourage everyone to, exercise this precious right that we all have. There were, I encourage everybody to review their polling stations. I know there was a little confusion last year. A couple were changed. The only change this year is that I believe it's districts 4, 5, and 6, if I recall correctly, used to be at Normandy School. They are now at the Morris Museum. And I want to say also, every election, I am so grateful to our poll workers. They are the unsung heroes here. Without our poll workers, we couldn't have our elections. They get there at 5:30 in the morning and they're there till 8:15 at night. They do, their work is so important. And I just want to say thank you in advance to everybody who's going to be serving as a poll worker. That's all I have tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Mr. Ravitz, your turn.
Okay. Well, good evening and thank you to the members of the public in attendance for your participation in local government. I strongly feel that government works best when the public is both informed and engaged. Also, congratulations to Ella, Elva, Emily, and Noel on their book boxes. From what I understand, in communities all over the country where these things are become available, they have become a big hit, and we're looking forward to them being a great addition to our community. For my public commentary tonight, I'd like to touch on a couple of things, as I always do. First one, Mr. Mancuso and Ms. Wilson have touched on already, and that is that Tuesday, November 2nd is Election Day. All eligible voters should be registered and ready to vote. This is an off-year election, and typically voter turnout is low. So voting is our right and not a privilege. And in my humble opinion, it is our obligation to vote in all elections. Americans throughout history have fought and died so we can enjoy this right. In New Jersey, elections are every year. So yes, it gets tiresome because it seems like electioneering never ends, but that's what we're given. So just to get into a couple of specifics and some deadlines for the public, October 23rd through the 31st is the in-person early voting period. And there are locations throughout Morris County where you can vote early in person. On October 26th is the deadline to apply for a vote by mail ballot for this election. November 1st at 3 p.m. is the deadline to apply for a vote by mail ballot in person at the county clerk's office. There is a ballot drop box located at our municipal township building. And lastly, on November 2nd, election day, the polls will be open from 6 to 8 p.m. Also, circling back to our proclamation about October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I just want to kind of restate that domestic violence and domestic abuse is more than just a black eye. Domestic violence does not only include physical violence, it's defined as a pattern of abusive or coercive behavior used to gain and maintain power and control over another person. It could be emotional abuse, financial intimidation, pet abuse, sexual coercion, and more. So in addition, kind of touching on that as a tangent, victim blaming attitudes can marginalize a survivor, making it hard to seek services and to heal. When engaging in victim blaming attitudes, society allows people causing harm to commit relationship abuse while avoiding accountability for those actions. And finally, keep in mind that disadvantaged people are not looking for vengeance or to turn the tide. They are looking for equal protections under the law. Equal protections for all of us does not infringe or diminish upon the rights of any of us. So let's have some empathy out there for our fellow citizens and our fellow humans. And let's not kick down upon the people who have less political and economic power as some of us might now enjoy. Rather, let's face up and stand up to those who profit from our division. Please have a safe and fun Halloween, and please do not drink and drive. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
It reminds me that Mr. Mancuso didn't remind us again not to text and drive. So I'll add that in for Mr. Mancuso. Okay, Mr. Gyorfy.
Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations again to the Girl Scouts who joined us tonight. Thank you for your time and efforts that you spent to benefit our community. I did just want to give one update. It's not a standing committee report, but as the OEM liaison, and as we head into storm season, I wanted to provide a few brief updates. Some residents might have noticed a new digital sign at Fairchild Fire Company. The sign, which was purchased by that fire company, will be available for the township to use in emergencies should we need to get special notices out, including alerts from FEMA. So thank you to the members of Fairchild Fire Company for allowing the township that opportunity to use that sign when needed during emergencies. Additionally, Fairchild received radio upgrades for incidents when Fairchild becomes an emergency command center. That will often happen during bad storms, hurricanes, or bad blizzards. So OEM, which is made up of volunteer members, is continuing to work on behalf of the residents, and our OEM coordinator, Dan Nunn, is continuing to work to make sure they have the resources and capabilities they need to get their job done during inclement weather or during emergencies. Lastly, you heard a lot about the Halloween events in the township. Just wanted to remind residents as well, events at the firehouses are taking place this Sunday at Hillside at 1 o'clock. There'll be their children's Halloween parade. The parade starts at Searing and goes up to the firehouse where they'll have candy and goodies for the kids. Fairchild will have theirs at 1 o'clock next Sunday, the 31st. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. One addendum to my standing committee report, which I forgot to flip the page. I just want to acknowledge that the annual overlay program is almost complete. We milled and paved Benton Drive, Burnett Road, Corey Road, Evans Farm Road, Lower Sterling Drive, Mark Twain Drive, Morris Place, Peachtree Way, Wilson Park Road, and we have 2 streets that are still to be done, which is Chimney Ridge Drive and Wood Road. Often residents ask us when their street is going to be paved over, and the answer is that our DPW department every year does a survey of all the streets in the municipality to determine their condition, and then ranks them. And we have a certain amount of money in the budget every year to do a resurfacing, and we go down the list according to those ratings. So if your street is in need, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll let you know where on the list your street is. That is the process that we follow. Just 2 comments for me. It's on the consent calendar. I want to acknowledge also Tilly Jo Emerson for her service to the Environmental Commission. As I stated earlier with the Girl Scouts, Morris Township's a great place because of all the people that give back. I thank everybody who is a volunteer on all of our boards and committees. And we do have openings on several of them. We have terms that come in that circulate from year to year. So some people's terms are up, some people leave. I encourage everybody who's interested in serving on any board or commission to go to the township website. There's an application form. If you go to the government tab and then go to boards and committees, on the left-hand side, you will find an option to click on application, and you can apply there and submit that to our town clerk and let us know what you're interested in. I also want to acknowledge the volunteer who was added to the roles of our fire department, Brian O'Neill. Also to encourage anybody who's interested in being a volunteer firefighter to sign up. We rely on volunteers to help our community keep the cost down, keeps us from hiring additional paid firefighters. And it's a great community service. Mr. Gyorfy himself is a volunteer firefighter. We are grateful for everyone who volunteers. So if that's an interest you might have, volunteering for the fire department is also another option. The one thing that all of my committee members didn't cover on my list of upcoming events is the annual leaf collection that has started this week. And you should put your leaves on the curb. We encourage you not to put them in the street if at all possible, because when they go in the street, they can get washed down to the nearest storm drain, and it clogs the drain and might cause some flooding. So please try to keep your leaves off of the street. Look at the website to see when your area of town is going to be collected. We're in zone 3 right now. You can look online to find out where your zone is, and we will be making announcements through the municipal messenger when we rotate from zone to zone. So another shout out for the municipal messenger, and encourage everybody to sign up for that. You can also go to the website, click on the government tab, and click on municipal messenger, sign up for all kinds of alerts that come out from the township, a lot of communications about things that go on and around town. So I encourage you to do that as well. Okay, that covers my comments, and we will now move on to commentary from the public again. We have a second round of public comment and inquiry. If anybody's interested with a question or making a comment, please raise your hand.
Mr. O'Reilly.
Mr. O'Reilly, are you there?
Now can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes. Your name and address for the record, please.
James O'Reilly, 50 Independence Way. I want to thank Mr. Ravitz for giving the dates for election. It answered some questions, but I think he had a slip of the tongue. The polls on election day are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., not from 6 to 8 p.m.
Yes, that's
correct.
6 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's it.
Noted.
The poll workers start very early in the morning. Thank you,
Right.
Mr. O'Reilly.
Thank you. I will now lower my hand.
Move we close the public session, Mr. Mayor.
No, seeing none, we'll take that. Anybody have a second?
Second.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Next, we have consideration of monthly reports.
That's
Will somebody read those?
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And lastly, Daniel has a question.
Hi, sorry, I just, really quick, I wanted to add about the polling places. I just wanted to say that districts 18, 20, and 23 have been moved back to Frelinghuysen. They were at Morrisview the last election. We did send out a large postcard mailing to all registered voters in that district to notify them of that change. And with that, if anyone has any election-related questions, please call the clerk's office. If we can't help you, we certainly will direct you to the county clerk or the Board of Elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
And that was our clerk, Danielle Lewis. I did notice also that some polling stations are now at the Morse Museum for 3 districts. Yeah, right. So that's another new polling place for some people. Okay, so again, direct all your questions to our clerk here, Danielle Lewis, or the county clerk. You can find that information on the website. Okay, last, we have consent calendar, we have claims for payment. Bills and vouchers totaling $10,924,905.80. I again remind everybody that we are the tax collector for the school district, the county, and the library, and then we dole out those funds. That is why that number is so big, because we have to pay those taxing authorities as well. But will somebody move the bills and vouchers, please?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. And lastly, we have the consent calendar that we've all been referencing all night. We will finally move that. Will somebody move that?
Please.
Is that a second, Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, just to remind everybody that our next meeting, as I stated earlier, is Wednesday, November 10th, a week earlier than usual, the second week in November because of a statewide meeting held on the 3rd Wednesday of the month. So again, please join us again on Wednesday, November 2nd, November 10th at 7 p.m. For our regular meeting. Will somebody move that we adjourn?
So moved,
So
sir.
moved.
Mr. Ravitz, is that a second?
You bet.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you to all the members of the public for coming out and
Good night, everybody.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Happy Halloween.